in 1986.
Russia was his long-time dream, and as soon as the United States and the Soviet Union inked an agreement on cultural exchanges, Hollywood sent his impresario, Peter Gelb, to Moscow. He said he wanted a low-key tour. The Russians said yes, and in 1986, 60 years after leaving Russia, Horowitz returned to the Soviet Union to give recitals in Moscow and in Leningrad, which was now St. Petersburg.
Feeling nervous returning to Russia after all those years, Horowitz had his jitters soothed already at Moscow Sheremetyevo Airport, where he was greeted, among many others, by his niece he had last seen as a toddler. In Moscow, he stayed at the U.S. ambassador's posh Spassel House residence, enjoying Russian cuisine, asparagus flown from Italy, and seafood from Britain.
During his brief sojourn in Moscow, the pianist set himself a very tight schedule to combine performances and meetings with visits to many memorable places, including Alexander Scriabin's House Museum, where he once used to play for the great composer, and Pyotr Tchaikovsky's museum in Klin.
On April 20th, 1986, Maestro Horowitz came out on stage at the Conservatory Big Hall to play a concert that was internationally televised and recorded live by Columbia Records and Deutsche Grammophon Company.
Play a series of concerts in Europe and continued to record for the remainder of his life. And still, he always touted his Moscow concert as a spectacular final chord in his entire career.
Surprise parallels, new versions, and forgotten names.
And there we end this edition of Musical Tales, prepared for you by Olga Fedorova, edited by Emila Koppers, sound engineer Nadezhda Smirnova, and your hosts as usual, Svetlana Yakinenko
and Carl Watts. We thank you very much for being with us, and we wish you well.
Russia World Service. At 0300 hours UTC, we continue broadcasts to North America on 19-meter shortwave. Listeners in Central and South America may hear us on 31-meter shortwave. We beam to Asia on 19-meter shortwave. Please stand by for the news, followed by other programs. And to find out more about us, please go to english.ruvr.ru. That's to find out more about us, english.ruvr.ru. And our email address, world@ruvr.ru. ruvr.ru. world@ruvr.ru.
This is Moscow. You're tuned to the World Service of the Voice of Russia.
In the Voice of Russia World Service, we present News Digest. The Post Office Department of Brazil's southern state, Rio Grande do Sul, has issued a stamp for the centenary of Russian immigration into the Latin American country. The Russian settlers contributed heavily to transforming the once wild forested area into one of Brazil's leading agricultural states. To pay tribute to their Russian settler services, the state legislature has passed a law whereby people in southern Brazil mark October the 9th as Russian Immigration Day.
Over 30 people took part in the Columbus Day parade in New York on Monday. Columbus Day is a holiday that is traditionally celebrated on the second Monday of each October. The colorful procession involving Americans of Italian origin, dance and music performing groups moved along Fifth Avenue in downtown Manhattan. The controversy is continuing unabated on who actually discovered America. Some researchers believe that the first to reach America from Europe was Leif Erikson, a legendary Viking who set foot on the American shore 500 years ahead of Columbus. Other researchers remain divided on whether Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy, or Cadiz, Spain.
U.S. authorities choose not to share what intelligence they've gathered about Al-Qaeda with the Pakistani government. This came in an interview with the Washington Times newspaper by Pakistan government officials. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity, since they are involved in complicated talks on a very sensitive issue, specifically the situation in the province Balochistan in the southwest of Pakistan, where Al-Qaeda and Taliban leaders may be in hiding. The Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi raised questions to that end when on a visit to Washington last week. He came out for a closer partnership between his government and the U.S. administration in tackling terrorism.